for September 10th to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Were there any changes to it?
Great question.
No.
Ah, excellent. All right. And I saw a thumb from whoever's on the Zoom call, so we'll record them as well. Very good. No Dan or no video.
We are having an issue with,
I'm sending you a text to.
I guess we're on video.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
we can hear you now.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so
I'm-
the
I'm-
owls are not working, so you're connected via Kathleen's camera and audio.
So I'll keep working. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's all good. Next item is
Oh,
the,
then- Okay.
thanks Dan, is the approval of the consent agenda. We have on the consent agenda our last minutes, the Energy Committee minutes, no tobacco or liquor licenses, the contract for the SRO, the appointment of Emily Charrington for the NBRC funding, the clerk of the works report on the IPL project, which is excellent and everyone should read. Your pleasure.
Not requesting a separate agenda item, but a couple of quick notes as we customarily do.
Yes.
For example, in the minutes of our last meeting, line 408, where it says "are an issue," or where it says "and an issue," it should be "are an issue." Not a biggie.
Okay.
I would just comment on the Energy Committee meeting notes. There are links in those minutes which are very useful for items 9A and B, for members who want to see what they're talking about for thermal energy networks or these other things. On the Ilse Public Library exhibits,
Yeah.
talked with Kathleen, just want to let you all know that about, and Emily picked up on this, the need to maintain the ability to exit from Bakery Lane while they're doing these geothermal wells. They can't totally block it off, but they got to come up with some kind of plan for access to and through, away from Bakery Lane in this process.
Okay.
And finally, on the town manager's report, the municipal bond bank, I think it's fantastic that we have this notification from the Agency of Transportation for $1 million plus grant for the sidewalks and from between Seminary Street and Route 7 South. The idea or the proposal that Kathleen wrote up for the use of that money
Right.
through the
one-time difference because
Yeah,
of the reduction in the
if we need a
interest rate.
motion for support of that, can we agree that that's included in the consent agenda, that we consent to that? It just needs to be in the minutes because whoever the manager is in November when this comes through, needs to know that we've allocated that money. Is that helpful?
Was that the
Okay.
intent to bring this?
No, that was just
Just a notice that
FYI.
this was a suggestion.
Yes.
Well, the board's support and the local match is important to moving this ahead, and the timing is important for the Stonecrop project. So, so I would move to improve the consent agenda as presented, including the board's support for the 9/4/24 bond bank Stonecrop financing as the local match.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh my God, look at that. Heather, did I hear you?
Yeah, well, maybe you didn't hear me, but I said aye.
Okay, perfect. That works. All right. The next item on our agenda is citizen comments. This is a time for someone with an item not on our agenda to come forward and introduce themselves and talk to the board about what's on your mind.
I'll go first.
Okay, thanks, Amy.
Hi, my name is Amy Ryan, and I am here to talk about the DIDC renewal and the relationship between the DIDC and the BMP, which Kathleen reminded me about 7+ years ago. I sat in front of the select board with the then executive director, Karen Duguay, to speak in support of the DIDC renewal. And I'm here, and I promised the select board at that time that I would keep a close eye on the relationship between the two organizations, because the question had come up is, do both of these organizations need to exist for Middlebury? And after spending the last 7 years, pretty heavily involved in both organizations, I would say the answer to that question is yes. They work together. There's no overlap between what the two organizations or commission and organizations do. The DIDC partially funds what the BMP does. We think of the DIDC as the steward of those tax funds that are collected from the property owners. And in part, the BMP are the doers of the events or activities or things that help fund marketing and events and things that bring people into these downtowns, which, as you know, the more vibrant our downtown is, the better off the businesses who occupy these spaces are going to do, and the better off the landlords who own those spaces will continue to hopefully reinvest in their own buildings and move forward. So Kathleen mentioned that there was a letter that was sent out a few years ago. I'm no longer on the DIDC, by the way.
Your only duty is to find
I should have.
successors who are equal
Yes.
to your.
There's apparently 2 vacancies now. The DIDC has vacancies that are slotted for certain categories of people within the town. So there are 2 vacancies, but I wanted to speak in support of the DIDC and what they do and let the town know you have my full support, and any way I can help move that along and make sure that we follow the timeline associated with the deadline for that renewal and get the signatures that we need.
Are you interested in serving again?
No. I mean,
Thank you for your service.
thank you.
Could-
Thank
If
you.
you
You're
could
welcome.
recommend anybody,
Yeah.
we would really appreciate it. There's property owners and business managers are the 2 categories you're talking about.
Property owners and business managers, okay.
Three or 2 property owners and a business manager. And maybe Stacy or one of the others who are still serving falls in one of those categories,
Mhm.
certainly property owner, business. But that's what we need to,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
Good evening.
Good evening and welcome.
My name is Elizabeth Case, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Aqua Vitae at Pond Lane. And you may recall that Jeff Weaver attended the same board late February after we had a series of water shutdowns. So today it's been 6 months, and I wanted to talk to the board because we've had 2 shutdowns since then. And we are very appreciative for everything that the staff in the water division, has been doing to restore water service as quickly as they could. But we're also very concerned because this is becoming untenable for a business of our size. And so here today, I have basically a question and a request. The first question is, and I'm not an engineer, so I'm just going to put it out there. We are wondering what is being done to address one of, or maybe the root causes of those water main breaks. And reading through different infrastructure committee reports and reading the Dufresne study of 2018, there is mention of a water hammer issue. And so we would like to know what is being done about this issue. Again, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know if we have a sense of where those high pressure surges originate from, if we know if there are enough pressure relief valves. So that's the first question. And then our request for you is if we can prioritize looping our dead end line to another line. And again, I've read that looping areas increases the hydraulic efficiency, diminishes the risk of another water hammer issue. So that this is a request we have for the board to prioritize this.
Yes, please.
So I've followed this closely and talked with Bill Kernan, our Director of Public Works Operations, about it. The actual recent water breaks just north of Cabot aren't due to a water hammer, but rather the settlement of the pipe on boulders or rocks that were used as backfill in the trench when it was constructed in 1975. And I don't know how many other such places there are and when those kind of breaks will occur again. But that's the problem, the particular cause of those breaks. There can also be breaks caused by water hammer, but I was interested in those particularly because there was a discussion at the last infrastructure meeting about, hold your breath, $20 million worth of water system improvements, including a connection from improving the line at Washington Street Extension to provide better fire flows for Fair Hills and connecting it from Happy Valley Road around. That's a long time project and millions of dollars to do all of that. The reality is that we don't know whether another settlement of the line that was built in 1975 will cause a break tomorrow or not. Another thing they're investigating is the possibility of slip lining those water lines so that if there's a break, the water service can still be continued. That might work out. So they're actively working on this. This is of great concern to the board
Thank you.
and the staff. And you know, like electricity, some businesses, institutions rely on constant electricity and they have emergency generators. And if your business particularly needs an amount of wash water in the event of a breakdown or storage water, you know, you have to think of it like other institutions and businesses think of it when they have a generator to cover a power outage. That's the reality of it, because we honestly don't know when a water line built in 1975 is going to settle and break somewhere else, and it's going to cause a period of disruption. And washing your equipment or temporary water to keep going is important. You might think of it in the same way as a standby generator. I mean, that's just my own personal thoughts on it. We all desperately want the water system to be reliable, but for it to be reliable by virtue of looping is going to take time and a lot of money. And
I
we want
understand.
to be upfront with the businesses about how quickly, because if it's really of urgent importance to you, I think, you know, there can be temporary water supply from a tanker truck or something that helps you wash your equipment down. I don't know how the details of
Yes.
that works.
I mean, I would say that we're probably, you know, I don't know actually, but I would venture that we're probably one of your top water consumers in the town, because our business is a beverage business, and so, you
Yes,
know,
and my
brew
wife
tea,
loves your
and
beverage.
so we use a lot of water. So I mentioned the water hammer issue because it is something that we've heard, that we've read about, and, you know, we appreciate the work that has been done to repair, replace, fix aging infrastructure, but it seems that here there's maybe a cause that can be investigated further.
Is being investigated.
And so I appreciate your comment. I mean, I think you probably can also appreciate on your end, we have about 40, 50 employees who rely on us. Every time we don't have any water, we send them home. It takes hours to restart operations, but it takes days to recoup the lost production. And so it's vital for us, and I think, you know, I'm sure you appreciate this, so thank you for your comment.
Thank you for your
Very much
appreciation of our difficulty in trying to help the water-dependent industries continue to, we're working on it.
All right,
Thanks for coming.
thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, please. Kathleen, is there anyone on the Zoominar?
I think so. Let's see what are announcements.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marie Teberge. In that same line of thinking, is any studies or fund allowed for inquiries done also for drainage of Roger Road and Daniel Drive?
For drainage over there.
Yeah, drainage of excess water, like when we had the flood last year. We were completely flooded, and the drainage was, so there was supposed to be studies. They had a grant to do a study to find out what was the best course of action. And I don't know if that study happened, or do you know anything?
Yes, well, in talking with Emily Charrington, who's the town's public works planning person, one of the problems is that there's a very little drop between the parent-child center and the Route 7 culvert. It's like a half a foot.
Mhm.
And that is silted up and grown up into cattails and so forth over time. So when excess water from increased storms that we have is coming down through there, there isn't a way for it to exit, so it does affect the properties on Daniel Drive that back up. I guess that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's an agency of transportation. That Route 7 culvert that is the lower end of this, that provides the drainage, is an agency of transportation thing. We have no control over that as a town. And Emily is studying all kinds of stormwater issues around town. So that's the status of it as I know about it. Maybe Kathleen has more.
I know that that area is on her radar screen, and she's actively working on it.
Okay, because we're very vulnerable, and and my house is at the lowest point of the lowest point.
You're not alone in experiencing
Yeah.
the challenges of increased rainfall and rainfall intensity. We're working on it all around town.
Okay, so Emily would be the best contact point to,
Emily is, yes.
okay. And did you say the sidewalks from Seminary C to connecting Seminary Street to 7 South?
Yeah, so Emily wrote a grant proposal to the Agency of Transportation for pedestrian improvements and has packaged things from the lack of a sidewalk on Valley View Drive to the lack of sidewalks on Rose Street, Rogers Road, with this, and has secured, just got notice that they're gonna commit up over $1 million to this. Now, that has to be packaged and phased, and we have to figure out how to make all of those pieces work. And some of them include maybe traffic calming as well as pedestrian. Am I right, Kathleen? I don't want to talk.
Yeah, it's mostly pedestrian.
Mostly pedestrian.
And bike improvement.
The Agency of Transportation takes time. How can I say that diplomatically?
I think you did.
So this is not a project that will happen immediately. Some other projects take interminable years.
But it's
The
been
good news
triggered.
is,
Yeah.
there's money, there's a proposal that we just talked about for matching the local match of that we have about $200,000 worth of local match for the $1 million V-Trans money. So,
That's big news.
Yeah.
well, I'm glad you think so.
That's huge.
Emily does amazing work in finding
I
these
know.
grants, so.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming. All right. Anyone else for citizen comments? Very good. Moving on. Agenda item 6, the appointment of Middlebury's contact for the Vermont 250th celebration.
We
Oh,
had
sorry.
BMP
I'm
before.
jumping.
Yes,
Oh, my goodness.
I see that.
Item 5, consideration of Better Middlebury Partnership's request for closure of Main Street for Spooktacular. Yay.
Yay. Hi there.
Hey, welcome.
Good evening. I am Kelly Flynn, and I am here on behalf of the Better Middlebury Partnership, and we submitted our permit for this year's Spooktacular, which we are hoping to have on October 27th, which is a Sunday, and scheduled between 2 and 5 in the afternoon. The initial permit was to just have the event on Triangle Park, and then have a parade that sort of went across the street and then down towards here and then back up towards Triangle Park. But the more that we thought a little bit about it, it seems that in the past years, the event sort of evolved away from Triangle Park and spent a lot more time on Main Street. And that made us felt a little concerned about kids crossing. And we did reach out to the fire department, who was really, generous in saying that they would help do assisting with the crossing. But we thought maybe we could even just go a little further and see if we could ask you all tonight if we could close down the street during that time. Probably from around Cannon Park to around where the post office is what we were thinking of for Main Street, so that it just feels a little bit more safe for the kids.
The permit looks great.
Yeah.
The event
Okay.
Any comments or questions?
I move to approve the public assembly permit,
Okay,
Better Middlebury Partnership for the proposed parade event on October 27th, 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Aye.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's all seven, very good.
Start thinking about your costumes.
Fantastic. Ah. Very
Now,
nice.
item 6.
Now it's 6, thank you, because it's 7:10. Appointment of Middlebury's contact for the Vermont 250th celebration preparation. Middlebury resident Tom Hughes is requested to serve as Kathleen steps down. This is very exciting, his resume is impeccable. Yeah,
He's excited, I mean, he's ready to work with the BMP is ready to work with him. So if you would appoint him, we'll let the Vermont 250 anniversary people know.
sounds good to me.
So this isn't really going to happen until 2026 and 2027 in response to the anniversary dates of 1776.
We're preparing, Fred.
What?
We're preparing.
2026 is a whole year's off.
Well, you initially appointed me the contact in 2023, so it is getting closer.
You need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'll move to appoint Tom Hughes as the Town of Middlebury's representative to the State of Vermont's 250th celebration planning efforts.
Second.
Oh, you can give it to Heather.
I'm not
That
giving
was
to
like
nobody.
perfectly in
I
time,
know,
huh?
that's great.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, and there we go. Both of the folks on Zoom as well. Excellent. Chief Shaw, I think you're up. Thank you. Request for approval of purchase order for grant-funded rescue struts and airbags.
You took my whole line. Perfect.
sorry.
Thank you very much. Good, Andy.
Ah,
No, super. Exactly, that's what we're here for this evening. About a year ago, 5 years ago, we started a process of grant writing to replace some of our aging equipment, and we separated the grant and broken into two parts, and we're successful on the second part, and the second part is airbags and struts. And the grant fund was $33,000, and we're looking to spend most of that, $31,000 on struts and airbags, and the remaining money we will leverage to purchase something else.
Can you tell me what struts and airbags are?
Yeah, absolutely. So struts are designed to lift and secure walls or other objects. You see it most commonly used in cars, vehicles that are on their sides. They're used to stabilize and to lift the car so first responders can work safely in that hazard area. Airbags are exactly what they say. They're an inflatable heavy lift bag that can lift tons of weight with basically a sealed rubber bag. The bags that we're purchasing can actually pick our aerial truck up. All four of them could pick our ladder truck up. So they're highly complex bags that use very little air pressure, 150 pounds of pressure to lift. So we would use these bags in the rescue world, also in the technical rescue world, and also in firefighting. And it's very common to use those in wall separations and that type of stuff. And so we currently have this gear, but it's very dated, well dated, 25 years old. And so the grant was to replace this existing equipment.
125 PSI can lift the ladder truck?
Crazy, huh?
What?
Big bag. Okay.
That's actually, the smaller the bag, the better the lift. Yeah, for sure.
What do you do with?
We'll bring it over to your house, we'll try something.
Yeah, I want to try it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's other physics of that.
What do you do with the equipment that you're?
So that equipment was, we actually inherited that equipment from another department with the same mindset that they gave it to us. When we were done with it, we were to give it to somebody else. So that equipment is now residing in Ripton. Yes. It's not dead, but it's on the latter part of its life, and that department will put it to good use, for sure.
And it's the
Yep.
federal grant is only a 5% match.
That's
from the
correct.
funds.
These funds are
$100
five.
in your budget, so
Yep.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Well, thanks. It's a hard group working tough over there to pinch every penny we can, so.
Best deal in municipal government.
I'll move to approve the proposed purchase orders from the fire department for the Firematic Supply Co. to purchase car strut equipment for $20,033.04, and Industrial Protection Services LLC for rescue airbag equipment for $10,999.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Or why did you say aye?
I thought I did.
Aye.
We'll take it. That's all seven.
Do you
Very
want us
good.
to raise our hands for you?
Whichever.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like face me so I can see your lips move, whatever. Chief, anything else we should know while you're here?
I think we're good. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Chief.
So much.
Kathleen, it's going to be sad not to see you sit to my right-hand side, because when I don't know what the heck I'm doing, I look over there and she can help me out, but thank you.
We'll find something good for you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Is Zeke on his way?
He is on his way.
Very good.
You can hear me.
We can hear you. Welcome, Zeke.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you.
Back again. Good to see everybody. So I'll just go back to 2 weeks ago. I was here hoping to get some confirmation on the deal terms. We had hoped by that meeting we'd have feedback back from town council. That came through at the end of last week, so I'm sure you've all seen some back and forth, both on the development agreement. Sorry, I should take a big step back. We're here to talk development agreement and escrow agreement for the town, right? So, some comments back. I think there've been some flurry between Benj and some of the select board members. Some comments on both. The comments on the development agreement, I don't think Benj did anything substantive. And I think we were there. I mean, the only change we made was change the defined term of us as a party from Summit to developer, just so it was consistent with some of the other agreements we were entering into. So I believe the development agreement had no substantive changes and is in a final place. And I would ask for the select board's authorization to Kathleen to sign that. The development agreement, we can back up to any of this, but I'll just keep going. The development agreement contemplates two other agreements. First, in section 6, is an escrow agreement, which we've discussed. The second is section 7, a stormwater maintenance agreement. The escrow agreement, you've had this template for a little while now. I think the way the development agreement reads, it says simultaneously with this agreement, developer of the town and the National Bank of Middlebury, and I brought them into the loop so they're on the same page, are executing an escrow agreement. We're proposing, in my last term, so I think you all saw this, to do separate escrow agreements by phase. So we'll have a phase A, we'll estimate based on the construction contract, which we haven't entered into today. We're doing sort of final pricing, so we'll be entering a construction contract in the next month or so. I would just ask that we do those. If that form is generally accepted, we do one of those once we have that final construction price and we're ready to deposit the 10%. There was more robust back and forth on the language in the escrow agreement, most of which originally entailed Benj, I think, taking some of the language out of the escrow agreement, putting it into the development agreements and timing things. Those all looked good. The one change that was made to a deal term that I think we had approved previously 2 weeks ago was the length of the warranty period. Benj had added, changed the 1-year warranty period to a 2-year warranty period. I just want to flag to you all that was one of those deal terms that I think we had settled on 2 weeks ago. As it was the amount we'd be paying to the sewer lining project between Washington Street Extension and Seminary Street Extension, the contribution to the Valley View sidewalk, the 10% escrow with the 1-year warranty. Those were like, in our mind, in the underwriting we're going through, the deal terms we had to nail down. And so I think we nailed down those deal terms. So I would ask in the most recent draft that came from Benj, that 2-year warranty period to go back to 1. There are obligations in the development agreement of needing to repair defective work for a period of 2 years. But I'm asking that the warranty period prior to release of the escrow funds only lasts that 1 year, and this is just a flow of funds capital underwriting challenge if that changes, so.
And so that's for your liquidity, Zeke, so that the escrow is released and could be used for later phases?
Yeah, yep. Again, one of those sort of like deal term underwriting components that has been scrutinized that is important to stick to. And again, one of those reasons why 2 weeks ago, when we were at the point where we didn't have necessarily some of the legal language vetted out, I did want to be able to stick to those deal terms. The last piece of this, the stormwater maintenance agreement, very draft form, that's going to take a little bit of time. There was no sort of contemplation of simultaneous. The development agreement just says that will be entered into once the stormwater pond has been approved by DPW. We're a year away from that right now, so that will come down the pike too. But I just want to make sure I'm covering everything in the development agreement. I think all parties are substantially in the same place on the development agreement. That's ready to be signed. The first phase A escrow agreement is going to be ready to be signed in about a month. And then that stormwater maintenance agreement is going to be down the road. So I'm not necessarily asking for approval for the phase A escrow agreement, but I am asking that the template of it be approved going back to the 1 year warranty period. And if there's a little bit of language we can hash out, we can. But I'll stop there and open for any questions.
Sounds good. Fred's got some questions.
What I understood the board approved was sections 3, 4, and 5, I think the essence of the deal. The Valley View sidewalk pavement, the sewer line pavement, and the completion of water and sewer. I don't know that the 1 year versus 2 years mentioned in any of those paragraphs. The 2 years is, authorized in statute, 24 VSA 4464, paragraph 4. And it's been a standard that the town has used in prior development agreements. Basically, you're going to build phase 1, and then construction traffic is going to drive over that before the final paving is on, as you proceed with subsequent phases. And, this is not meant to cost you more. It's meant to assure that the work that is done, that you're going to procure through your engineers and your contractors, is a quality that is going to stand up to your subsequent construction traffic. Okay? So to make this a reality for you, at the end of the first phase road is a hammerhead. There's a water line that crosses that hammerhead on the east side of that first road that the plows and construction equipment is going to drive across until you proceed to a future phase. So that's the reason for the 2 years. And, I talked with Bill Kernan about this, and he supports the idea, but it's something that the select board bench has interpreted that statute enables the town to go up to 2 years, and we can go back to 1 year. So I realize that's a point of discussion, but it really wasn't talked about in those 3 paragraphs that we authorized previously. I'm sorry that you're not here. I was thinking that you could come tonight. I've made some minor comments on pages of this that I don't know how to transmit to you at this point. So I'll just read my comments about them. They're not substantive. I just want to say that this is the 5th time the select board has received information on development agreements starting back in March. And I sure hope this is the last, because I want this project to proceed. So I want everything to be taken in the context of being constructive and moving forward. Just in the development agreement, in the recitals, this background number 4, there's in the second line, shared maintenance. I just have to say that I think this is an unfortunate reference, because actually none of the infrastructure maintenance is going to be shared. One of the fundamental reasons for having a development agreement is to say it's either going to be the developer or ultimately the homeowners association or acceptance by the town. And we actually aren't going to share anything. The stormwater agreement, we're going to divide the responsibility. We're not really sharing any maintenance responsibility. Is that your understanding too?
Yeah, and again, that language is in the DRB's decision.
I know, it's
So
unfortunately
I
found its
agree.
way
If
in.
you look at it, and the overall PUD is shared, because the town's gonna be maintaining some of its property, the HOA is gonna be maintaining some of its property, but I think that might be it.
It's
Yeah,
just
I
an,
think we're all-
Dan has his hand up.
Yeah.
it's just an unfortunate reference. And I, from my years of working with the town, as a town planner years before, I came to learn that what drives public works nuts is not knowing clearly what they're responsible for, or having the homeowner association think, oh, no, it's not covered, there's gaps in between, who says who's supposed to do what, and therefore it must be the town. And we cannot, we have an enormous challenge to try to keep straight who's what. So your exhibit 2, X2, a colored exhibit attached to this would really bring clarity and help our public works department and your own homeowners association.
That's there. We'll slot that into the final version, and I think we're all I agree.
On section 3, it refers to the Valley View sidewalk as being at the start of the 2026 school year. I don't know whether the school year, if you're a teacher, it starts earlier than if you're a student. The DRB approval says September 1st. The date, a hard date, is we're not going to argue about when that is. It's pretty close anyway.
Okay.
The other comment in phase C, the last line, again, I'm in a development agreement, that the relocation of the water main, my understanding is that that's required because of how your project is laid out. And you're going to be doing that in coordination with the town. It's not the town's responsibility to relocate that. Is that your understanding?
Yep, that's
Okay.
developer done, I think.
So you might say that
you're-
it's going to be partially redirected by the developer in coordination with the town in phase C. That just make it clear.
Yep.
On the escrow agreement, in paragraph 1, for whatever reason, they have these things enumerated. They start with street trees and drainage and things. They don't include sidewalks. And I would strike all those sort of enumerated odd things that leave out all of the other things that you're putting in it. And simply say in the first line, the developer will at its own expense complete the public improvements. A defined term, which you included above. Because leaving out all the other good stuff that you're doing, I don't understand. Anyway, and then in the following paragraph below those enumerated things that I would strike, I would just think it would be clearer to say that said costs and breakdown for the purposes of the escrow agreement or line agreement includes site work, infrastructure, and related improvements generally described as the public improvements in the plan boundaries of the roadways shown as Stonecroft Road, Barnes Road, and Ledgmere Road, and related stormwater and off-roadway utility easements, the water and sewer associated with that phase. I mean, that's what you, that's, it just is clearer than the verbiage is there.
Yeah, no substitutes there, that's fine.
Yeah, and then on the next page, paragraph 3, the beginning of the paragraph that follows the construction contract amount and escrow amount. It says this sum shall be deposited. You really want to say this escrow amount shall be deposited, right?
Yep, agreed.
And then I would just suggest that provision be made for the plans to be changed. You've cited the date of 6/14/24. I've never seen a project that doesn't have a construction set issued that has some updated plans. And we should just admit that that's going to happen. Those are going to get mechanically reviewed through the town manager. Whatever's involving zoning will get steered to zoning, sewer, public works, and that the town manager be authorized to okay plan changes somewhere in this, because that's just what
we should probably include that up where we do the defined term in the title of the plans, right? Just sort of say as updated and approved by.
So I think, I feel very good about the understanding we have about this. And I would, unless there's other comments about it,
Dan hasn't had it
Yes.
for a while.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, hi, I'm uncomfortable with the conversation. This seems to be a conversation between Fred and Zeke, and Fred is making changes that I would think would be more appropriately done to the town administrative staff,
Yes.
and not us on the select board, and that Fred doesn't really have the authority to speak. That he's talked with Bill, or he's talked to Emily, and I just feel uncomfortable with this one-on-one conversation when I don't understand it as well as he does. He's a master at this, but I'm sure this probably might make Kathleen a little uncomfortable also. We've got many steps of other people that should be making these changes, and it's probably not at the select board level, particularly the select board meeting.
I'm sorry, Dan, and I agree with you. It should be done through the town manager. Our last meeting authorization was for the manager to approve these, and I did discuss these briefly with Kathleen before the meeting, and she said it would be okay to copy this for the participants who are here. You know, a lot of these changes have come through suddenly, but we all want to complete this and have it done tonight. And I'm happy that Zeke feels these are not substantive, and Kathleen can work them in. So I was prepared to make a motion that we authorize Kathleen to sign these in whatever final form she feels is appropriate. I think the only remaining issue is this 1 year versus 2 year warranty that I think the board ought to give reaction to based on Benji's comments.
Yeah, I guess for me to understand that, I would have to have some recommendation of somebody knowledgeable. I know you are, but is that the position the town wants to take? I mean, obviously we approve it, and it's our position, but I would just like to hear somebody else's opinion about that.
Thanks, Dan. Brian
Brian
had
has
his hand up. I'm
yeah.
going to go to him next. Brian?
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of what Fred says is not substantive, but it's style driven, and we can rewrite this thing 100 times. This is our #1 priority, and we're just, by nitpicking this stuff, we're not showing that it's truly our #1 priority. We approved 3, 4, and 6, Fred, and I believe 6 is where the 1 year reference comes, and I'm not willing to entertain going back on what we've been discussing through the entire process of a 1 year warranty. I mean, at the last minute, we're gonna try to change it from a 1 year to a 2 year? What the hell kind of a board are we running that a developer can't come to our town and invest in our town and have a word that's good going forward? I'm frankly pretty upset about it.
Thanks, Brian.
I was just gonna say, I think in my limited experience in the construction world, that a 2 year warranty is excessive. I think a 1 year warranty is reasonable, and I feel comfortable leaving it at the original 1 year, in my experience. I think we're asking too much of a burden on the developer with a 2 year warranty.
Dan, right on.
No, I think he didn't put
Or
it
he
back
put his hand
down.
down.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, you have a go, right there.
He says he's okay.
Okay.
Are there other select board comments?
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
So I would move to.
We've got a public comment here.
One more comment, Fred. In the construction, I'm an architect, 45 years experience. So.
Would you, I'm sorry, excuse me, would you?
I'm Jonathan Miller.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I live in San Jose. So in the construction world, the 1 year warranty is common.
Standard.
It is usual. At the end of 1 year, the 1 year, we call it a callback period. That's when warranties begin for the owner of the project. So it's really kind of a legal document thing. So, yeah, 2 years is excessive, and I agree with Brian.
Thank you.
Appreciate your perspective, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Ross?
I was just wondering, Ross Conrad, I was just wondering if there's anything that the developer can do to potentially mitigate the potential for damage from the additional construction vehicles after the 1 year, if you do go with 1 year, so that that concern is addressed in some manner. If not with a 2-year warranty, with some other action. Is that possible?
They have every incentive really to build it to quality because they have to extend this. I only bring it up because it's what the standard we use for prior development, South Ridge, South Road. That's all. I'm willing to concede with the others who think 1 year is the appropriate standard. I think we need to be done with this. I agree with Brian and others. I just only mention it out of consistency. That's all.
Brian?
I would just comment for Ross that this isn't even a 2-year project. I mean, this was probably a multi-year project. So even a 2-year warranty period doesn't get you all the way through to the end of the project. So if that's the rationale, it doesn't really hold water. I think we'll know after they've traversed that property for a year whether it's holding, and then there should be some developer responsibility as they continue over town. If they're breaking up the road, if they break up the road going into the property, we usually hold the developer accountable to put the road back into the regular wear and tear that would have been expected. So
maybe we'll talk about it in the phase 2 agreement, if that happens.
yeah, we can look at that.
So I would move to approve the form of the final version of this Stonecrop Meadows development agreement between, as revised today, with the 1 year between the town of Middlebury and Summit Properties, and authorize the manager to sign it when the details of the escrow amounts are submitted and acceptable to the town manager.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
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 Thank you, Zeke.
We're all in.
Andy?
Thank you, Zeke.
Aye.
Aye. Yes, I got it.
Okay,
So-
just wanted to make sure.
Very good.
Just to follow up, clarification on that, have you authorized me to sign the development agreement, and then when the escrow agreement is ready, we'll sign that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good clarification. I think we're all in agreement.
And just from our perspective, really appreciate everything you guys have done, all the dialogue. Obviously, I come in and harp on you all about wanting to close things out and know what the expectations are and consistency, and you are a volunteer board, and so we're going to be in business together for a long time once we start construction this fall. So I think we're all pulling the same oar here, and I just appreciate
Yes.
working with you all.
Thank you, Zeke.
Thanks, Zeke.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Cheers. Michael? You're up.
All right.
Very exciting. Go
I
ahead.
will try to be brief because I'm glad I'm not alone and wanted to go home and watch that debate.
The last one was a heartbreaker.
Let's hope it's a different story. Yes. So this is kind of a two-part conversation. So partly Kathleen had suggested that it might be useful for us to just update you on what we're up to at the Energy Committee. So I'm going to walk you through some of the projects and initiatives that we're currently working on. And then I'm thinking we can handle this one of two ways. There's also two very specific proposals that I believe you need to weigh in on. So I can either like walk through all of it and then we can talk about the proposals, or the way I've organized it, we can pause. They kind of show up at different points.
You said you'd be brief?
I'll be brief.
Perfect.
All right, so I guess the first, I organized the work that we're doing into kind of municipal decarbonization and then thinking about residential and commercial decarbonization. And so the first thing I would talk about is municipal decarbonization, but before that, there's something that didn't fit into that category, which is work that we're doing with the Planning Commission, thinking about the town plan and climate change. And so I've been working very closely with Jen Murray to find a way for us to kind of weave what's happening with climate into the upcoming revision to the town plan. So thinking about what does this mean in terms of transportation and education and housing, economy, land use, all of those questions. And so you will see sometime along the course of the next year as this unfolds, you should see more climate stuff working its way into spaces that it may not normally have shown up in. So that's kind of and so that touches on all aspects of town life. In terms of municipal decarbonization, one thing that we do a lot of work on is buildings, and so we've been in conversation with the library, trying to think about geothermal and net neutrality and some amount of resilience. We will probably show up when the wastewater treatment plant proposal comes through to kind of talk. Richard Hopkins has been doing some really very detailed work trying to understand the different carbon impact of aerobic versus anaerobic digesters, and as far as I can tell, you trade saving a ton of electricity with producing a lot of CO2. So that's going to be a question that we all are going to have to grapple with when that finally shows up and has been engineered. We're working with the police department and the teen center on revamping HVAC, and then the heat pump, and then one of the other buildings that we've been talking about is the rec center. And so I guess this would be a moment to pause to say one of the proposals is to not go with the approved natural gas heater that the rec center wanted to put on, but we found an equivalent that's a heat pump that's electric. And there's a price difference of around $20,000. So our committee agreed to use some of the money that we steward to pay for that. And so I believe you all have in your packet a motion for us to spend that $20,000 to allow us to not put in a natural gas device, but to go instead put in a heat pump. So I'm thinking we could pause if you wanted to discuss that item.
Do we know that this is equivalent in lifetime?
I believe it's the same. It's Trane. It's the same manufacturer. It's
the same guts, just a different product.
Yeah. And it's not like breaking new technology. It's been around for some time. So, and again, I should say I am not an engineer. So, like, if you really want to get into those questions, go find an engineer.
Understood. Questions about yes. Right.
So the proposal, well, the agenda notes talk about focusing on 3 areas: elder library, wastewater plant.
Different. I'm going to get to that one. I went out of order, so my.
9B.
Okay. Well, the minutes that you did that we accepted through the consent agenda have a lot of links in it, and one of the great things that Mike has done, chair of this committee, is work up a spreadsheet of various projects that the energy committee is working on, and a treasurer's report. And Kathleen, importantly, noted that the vast majority of the money that has been allocated over the years to the energy committee is sort of reserved for capital projects. And the energy committee has $2,000 per year for other kinds of activity. This doesn't include a separate grant that came through for the past year, the Climate Economy Action effort. But anyway, the Energy Committee is really interested in the prospect of thermal energy networks.
Hold on, Fred. Pause. I'm going to get there.
Okay.
We're doing the heat pump in the rec center.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's 9B.
Yes.
I went out of order. I apologize.
We're going out of order.
Okay.
We're right at 9B first. Yes.
I think that's terrific.
Can I ask a question about
Yes,
the heat pump?
please.
So, I'm assuming this is a cold climate heat pump, and that it will be if it does get cold in Vermont again, it will take care of keeping that place warm.
That is my understanding.
And we
So
don't need any other kind of backup system
This
or?
is my understanding. Again,
Okay.
I'm not an engineer. So this is all the folks in the town who think about this stuff have agreed that this is a good idea. They're
Okay.
willing. They just don't have the money to pay there's a premium to be paid. And so what we're saying is we'll use this money to pay the premium. But they've signed off on this idea.
And it does include cooling as well, right?
Yeah.
It was pretty during
Unbearable.
the election, the primary election, it was pretty warm in there, so, I'm looking forward to seeing how this impacts that space.
Would you like to make a motion?
Sure, I'd be happy to make a motion. I'll move to approve the use of $20,000 of the town's energy efficiency capital funding for the heat pump installation project at the town recreation center.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion or comments? All in favor, please indicate. Aye. Yeah, good. We all got there. Very good.
Okay,
Thanks,
so
Mike.
I'm going to keep going.
Let's go.
The last bit of municipal decarbonization is thinking about vehicles. And so we've been working with Bill Kernan to look at the inventory of all of the vehicles plus all the other equipment that the town owns and trying to figure out what the replacement schedule is and to try and get ahead of when these things are going to be replaced and do research to see if we can find carbon-free versions ahead of time. So that's mostly just a good news story. So we're trying to change the mode that we've been operating in, which is we usually show up after, at the select board and say, how could you possibly do this?
Yeah,
And so
good.
we're thinking, could we get ahead
appreciate
of that
this.
so that we're
Yeah.
not having these conversations?
Love it. Thank you, Mike.
So that's the municipal side of things. And then the second part I think about is kind of residential and commercial decarbonization, and that's where the town has a lot less control. The municipal stuff, we all can approve and do, and we don't have to change hearts and minds. But on the residential and commercial side, we have to sort of think through how do we reach the people in Middlebury and convince them to decarbonize. So the one part is education. And as you know, we've talked some about the Energy Navigator program, and we got the $4,000 grant from the town through MERP to go with that, and so that's going along quite nicely. Another project that we're working on is thinking about energy code education and compliance, so thinking about builders and helping them understand what the building codes are, what the energy codes are, and trying to provide education. So this, as you may remember, and Fred alluded to this, we proposed for an EECBG grant, which is a front for the DOE, and we got approved at the EECBG the Public Service Department level, so it now has to get DOE approval, but it seems likely that we'll get $100,000 or so to bring another person onto the Energy Navigator team to help support some of this vendor education, and we also built a bit of workforce development into that grant as well. So that's what I think is more good news, and we're not asking you for any money in that particular case. Kind of second part is really thinking about infrastructure, and so thinking about EV chargers in particular. And so there's a lot of federal money out there. Some of you may have read the news about Burlington installing a whole bunch of EV chargers, and so we're...
You have a ridiculous number. 50? Okay. I guess that's not ridiculous. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
4,000 a pop or 40,000 a pop?
So we don't have a proposal yet, but we're certainly looking at all of the money that's out there in the IRA and trying to figure out how do we bring that to Middlebury, how do we find the right locations for these. And it doesn't all have to be municipal locations. It can be done at restaurants and shopping marts and all of that. So, and then the last part around residential and commercial decarbonization that I want to talk a little bit about is this thermal energy network proposal. So we have a number of us. Jonathan is our representative to this. There's a Middlebury working group on thermal energy networks, and I'm not sure if you study our minutes, but the thermal energy network is basically it can be a geothermal network, so you have wells and you're doing basically it's heat pump technology, but it's underground. But instead of it serving a single building, it can serve a neighborhood. And then it also can include things like hockey rinks and shopping centers, places that generate heat, where they can then capture that heat, put it into the network, and then you basically need to stand up a utility of some sort to manage the network and to buy and sell heat in this neighborhood. So this, there's a neighborhood, I think in Framingham, they just stood up one of these as a pilot.
So Montpelier put in something akin to this when I was there, using the state's huge boiler. They put in a high temperature line through town and sold heat off of that.
What's cool about this is it's low
This is obvious.
temperature. So it's not high temperature, it's like 50 degrees, so it doesn't have any of the challenges that a normal, like when you think about like a steam plant, it's analogous to, but different from, because it's really heat pump technology, not, forced hot air.
Agreed, but is the heat pump operating at each location, or is this a centralized?
I'm gonna turn for you, I'm not the engineer in this.
Come on up.
Come on. Jared Rodriguez is really the expert on this, and he's a national expert. But essentially, the different buildings like the co-op or different places that are generating excess heat put it into the system, and then that gets regulated over. Now, it's not necessarily 50 degrees, because if you put a lot of heat in, then you've got more heat.
Yeah.
So that temperature will go up and down depending on who's using it and it is heat pump technology. So, very simple.
So the working
The groundwater is a heat sink.
Yeah, it can be it's a heat sink. Yeah, or
So the working group has identified 3 neighborhoods that they think of these as neighborhoods. So one is the library. And so one of the conversations is, could the library, when it puts geothermal in for its HVAC needs, could it actually put in a geothermal network and serve the Haymaker and the Taste of India and the Marquee? And so we're having a conversation about that. The second is the Exchange Street, and so there's a number of businesses there that do actually generate excess heat. And the wastewater treatment plant is a classic example of a entity that can contribute to one of these thermal energy networks. And so that's a second neighborhood, second set of conversations that we're organizing. And then the third is Washington Street. And Washington Street, so we've got two supermarkets. We've got all of these sort of apartment buildings. So that they've identified that as another opportunity.
And Middlebury.
And so, just to get to cut to the chase of like why am I here telling you about this?
Yeah.
This Jared Rodriguez is a consultant who runs this this company that focuses on bringing thermal energy networks into communities like ours. He's been working pro bono, and we're very much interested in sort of compensating him for his work and helping to convince him to continue to help us build out both the kind of technical side of it, but also understanding the kind of finance and governance side of all of that. So the proposal is Kathleen pointed out that the money that the Energy Committee controls, or sort of semi-controls, we don't really control anything, it seems, but we can at least have some say on how it gets spent. We couldn't use it for non-capital projects. In my mind, the wastewater treatment plant and the library project are capital projects. And so to my mind, those would be an allowable expense to charge consulting fees to consider making part of those 2 capital projects include a thermal energy network. The third one, the Washington Street one, I cannot, even my mind cannot find a way to try to categorize that as a capital project. So what we've proposed, what the Energy Committee proposed was that it's the proposal is for $5,000. We've proposed that we use 2,500 of it from our capital dollars from the Energy Committee funds, and then from some other magical source that Fred promises me exists, we would pay for the other $2,500.
I'm in enough trouble with the rest of it.
I'm going
I
to
don't promise anything.
I'm going to go to Dan at this point.
I'm
Dan?
a liaison.
Yeah, hi, I saw that on your proposal, you have, obviously, you talked about the library as a neighborhood, and you said you talked to people. Have you talked to Dana? Have you talked to Judith? Have you talked to Chris Huston?
I sure have.
To anybody in the library who's working on the library?
I sure did. So we were having a meeting tomorrow on this very subject. And Jared will be there whether we pay him or not. And so one of the things, so Dana has basically said, like, as long as this doesn't slow me down, I'm down with it, which I think is a reasonable position. And I told her that there's actually so much money in the IRA for this kind of work that I can imagine a world in which we build one of these thermal energy networks, the library becomes a customer of that, and the library is no longer on the hook for having to think about running a geothermal system on it, that it becomes run by the utility that we stand up rather than run by the town.
I agree with that, and I understand that, but they're going to be they're drilling those test wells right now, and in a year and a half, we're going to have this system up, hopefully, and operating on the library. And again, I'll emphasize what Dana says, there's nothing that's going to slow this down, and there's no library, there's not even enough money right now to build the library yet for the library to create this system for you. So you might be late on this one, but the most important thing is that you can't impact the schedule of the library, and the library's money is not there to pay for this.
I talked to Jared a little bit about this, and essentially he says all we need to do is just provide the connections to that field for future tie-ins, and that's not going to slow.
You might want to talk to Chris Huston about that, because you might already be too late. But just tying it in is a lot more complex than just tying in this system, particularly when we don't even know if the wells right now are going to be able to support just supporting the library. So you really need to be talking about these guys instead of building everybody's hope that you're going to build a system off this.
Well, Jared can answer it tomorrow. Jared can answer it all tomorrow.
Yeah, so
It's Thursdays.
That's fine.
Yeah, Thursday.
I'm glad
Thursday.
you can answer it, but Chris is the one that's going to be developing it, so.
So we're going to learn a lot more about this on Thursday, both at the infrastructure meeting on the wastewater plant, which is a eye-popping report unto itself, but the following meeting at the library, including Judith and Chris, which I think is at 11 on Thursday. And, the way these geothermal systems are sized for the load of the building that they're going to give in. They're going to basically take water, put it down one well, and draw it out of another. And the rate at which that water can be drawn through the cracks in the rocks between that well and the other well determines the capacity of the system. We may need more than 2 wells to do this. If we have incredible capacity, then there conceivably could be some extra use, and a T could be put in. I mean, that is theoretically possible. The whole challenge of these thermal things is the timing and the financing. Take any other of these areas. All the businesses and entities that are there already have their heating system. They're not going to replace them all at once. We're not starting all at once where you can, design something, do it as a group project, and make it pay off that way. So the timing and financing of them is a real challenge that I see. And I think when we learn more about it on Thursday, we'll learn more about what might be possible, and that might be the time to later then bring Jared in, and when we have.
Well, Jared has-
Expertise.
Well, right, I mean, Jared is coming whether, so there's a ways in which you.
He's coming Thursday?
Yeah.
Is he actually physically coming?
I believe so.
Oh, great.
So part of, and part of it, just to frame this in, sort of keeping some broader perspective, I'm totally supportive of the library. I work in the library, I'm a library person, but we're also in a climate crisis. And so we as a town, I think, have to be thinking about what would it take to get the people that work here, live here, are using fossil fuels off of those fossil fuels. And so this is why I'm really hoping that we can continue to explore this really, really promising technology and find a way to sort of see like what's possible, understanding that we can't do it if it's impossibly expensive, and we can't do it if it's going to completely upend the plans for projects. But this seems to me like we may be, Dan, you might be right, we might be out of time and we can't do it, but given it seems like a chance to have some conversations and see, is there a way to make it happen? And I do feel there is also money. I know the library is searching for money. There's so much money in the IRA around this sort of technology that there may be a way to help find sources to make this go off the library budget and into this new network budget instead.
My sense was that a big chunk of one of those pots was involved in the geothermal budgeting that they used in the library plan.
Yeah.
You're correct. That is correct.
And as to the wastewater area, we just got a report. The infrastructure committee is going to talk about it on Thursday. There's huge needs for both the renovation of the wastewater plant and what to do with sludge drying. And besides the concerns of the energy committee about greenhouse gas emission, there's the huge cost associated with drying the sludge and state and federal requirements. The numbers on that are, eye-popping. So we're going to learn a lot more, and that he's coming anyways is fantastic. But I would think that his proposal might be tuned based on what we learned Thursday. What do you think, Kathleen? Does that make a better way forward?
Yes.
So, not to say no to anything, but wanting to use the limited funds that we have most efficiently based on what we learned Thursday. Might be the way to go for it. Members think.
Other comments?
Yes, so do we have an idea of where the other 2,500 would come from?
Brad said he's got it.
No.
I don't.
The only other thing that I would comment, so I would like to know where we would take the 2,500, because we do budget things pretty tightly because the budget's been under a lot of pressure the last couple of years. So I'm just curious where it would come from. The other thing on the proposal, there was no indication of hours. So I had a hard time, do you have a sense of like the work that's outlined there? How many hours that?
I could find out.
Okay, I just, are we paying 10 hours, $5,000 for 10 hours? Are we paying $5,000 for 100 hours? I'm just trying to get a sense of like, what does this mean in terms, it would be, we haven't put this out for any kind of bidding. So I just have nothing to compare it to, is essentially what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Not necessarily opposed to it. It seems like it's good information to have. I'm just not sure if we're getting a good bang for our buck, because I don't understand the hours involved and maybe this is the only person that does this type of work and it's the only option. I don't know. So.
It's very much a niche.
Okay.
It's a niche, and Jared is the engineer for the Rocky Mountain Institute. I mean, he was their consultant for many years, and that, to me, I respect Jared a lot in my capacity.
You have that experience, but me sitting here, I don't have that experience, so I'm just trying to understand a little bit more before
I think Jared's 5,000 is a deal.
okay.
So,
Okay.
in the Energy Committee's minutes that are in your consent agenda, is a budget update. And apart from the Recreation Center, 20,000, it says there's $46,000. And then some of that is, Emily has her eyes on for other town building projects like police and, I don't know.
All the things I listed off.
Yeah, so what Mike was saying was that if this pans out, let's say for the wastewater facility, where they're talking about one of the options is capturing the methane to heat the sludge, to dry the sludge, to offset the enormous costs of that. And there's some aspect of this that may involve flaring off the methane, which prevents, if it's flared, prevents the methane from going into the atmosphere. But people sort of view that as a waste heat kind of thing, and maybe that could be captured in some way. And I think
Okay.
that kind of potential, there's capital money. Have you seen that?
Yeah, Fred, how much did you think that was gonna cost? You keep referring to it being eye-popping. $50 million is a bargain.
50 million?
It's a bargain for a wastewater treatment plant upgrade. How much did we spend 25 years ago?
We
We spent.
had an earmark from Senator Leahy at the time. $50 million is an enormous amount of money.
Oh, I don't disagree with you,
I'm
but.
not saying that this thermal energy thing's gonna pay this off, but, you know, my eyes pop at 50 million. It popped at 20 million for the water.
20 million was 5 years ago. Anyway, yes.
You laugh. What would water and sewer rates be?
I laugh because I have been dealing with it for almost 9 years, and I think we've done a tremendous job finding money, engineering projects, getting things done. But we have a long way to go, and I think people need to understand that it's going to cost a lot of money, and we'll have to figure it out. But we can't. People need to be able to turn their faucets on and have the water run, and flush their toilets and have their waste go away. And for me personally, those are high priority projects, because you can't have housing, which is a #1 priority for this board, if you can't provide water and you can't flush a toilet.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know. Anyway, we're getting off the weeds. I'm so sorry. I personally did not have a sense, looking at the proposal, you know, how many hours we're talking about, whether other people do this work, what it compared to, and then where the other $2,500 would come from. So, I'm not opposed to it. I just wanted to have the
We'll have
sense.
to figure that out.
I think it sounds like we're getting a freebie this week from Jared. It sounds like we can go back and come back, you know, because he'll learn a bunch, and so we may identify either like this is a non-starter, so let's not even bother continuing, or there's actually a there. So I might come back and say, actually, I need 15,000, not 5,000, because we have a real project on our hands. So it sounds like maybe we'll table it and I'll come back.
What he can produce from this Thursday meeting more than offsets the $5,000 from what could help the fund towards 50 million. It'll be a bargain, but let's wait to see what we hear Thursday. My thought.
My guess is that we're not going to get any promises like, give me $15,000 and we will save you $1 million. So it's really an investment in like, what would it look like to bring thermal energy networks into Middlebury? For another day.
I think that seems to be the sense of the board.
Yeah, I don't want to give up on it. You know, like, I think it might be a worthwhile investment, but let's keep.
If you've got some time on a rainy day, go through the slides that he produced that explains all of this.
Yeah, I didn't get that far. I read through the minutes and stuff, but I didn't click through the links and everything, so.
And it is, I mean, admittedly, this is early adopter stuff, so like, there's not, you know, we can't point to 500 towns that have done this, so this is very much, we're on the edge edge in doing this, but maybe we'd like that, I don't know.
Is there any research, that this is probably going off the weeds and I apologize, but like what happens when we start pumping excess heat into the groundwater? Like, and we raise
Stays there.
the, what?
It stays there until we pull it out.
And what's the environmental impacts of that?
Nothing. You want,
Then we know, it just.
I think there's too much life happening.
you're talking
100,
about raising
200
it from
feet.
50 degrees to maybe 56.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't understand
Yeah.
it. I just, does his slide provide more information about how these systems work?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll take a look.
There's some physicists in the back of the room that know this as well,
Okay.
or we have some
Great.
new residents.
Well, I think it's very commendable that the Energy Committee is bringing some of these new technologies forward for us to look at and consider and think about, so. And we haven't talked about the millions of dollars we need in stormwater mitigation that we need to do as well.
Absolutely.
So the next number of years are gonna be tight budgeting, trying to figure out how to afford to do the work that we need to do, so. And that doesn't include, that's just about turning the water on, flushing the toilets, and managing stormwater. That doesn't even deal with like how we continue to decarbonize, so. It will be a challenge that we'll all have to work on together.
All right. Well, that's my story.
Good one.
Okay,
Thanks,
thanks,
Mike.
thanks for being here.
Bye.
I'm gonna leave the rest of the meeting.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye all.
Okay. Item 10, Vermont League of Cities and Towns proposed legislative policies, including education funding proposals. I was involved in edits to some of these, but I was unable to click the link that came. Did she? So good of her.
Oh, I don't think I got this far.
The notice to the Leicester taxpayers was hilarious. I very much appreciated that. By the way, the tax bill that we have to send and collect, it's not us. There was a lot of discussion at the League Committee about maybe the state collecting property taxes and remitting to the towns, rather than towns being on the hook for delivering property taxes to the state. Such that the town needs to make up any shortfalls in revenue that are not submitted on time. It's a huge burden, and so much of it is the education portion. Anyway.
Andy, could you, on 1.2, number 7, ensure no property owner pays less than $0
Yeah.
in education property taxes? That doesn't make sense. Can you
It
explain
does
that?
not make sense to me either, but people were very sure that
It makes sense.
there are cases where people have a negative
Less than zero?
educational tax bill. Yeah. The town manager of Waterbury was sure that this had been the case in more than zero situations. I agree. Shouldn't, like, how can you have a formula that goes negative? It makes no sense.
Well, when we're on number 7 there, in that general area of finance, I think that we have enormous financial challenges. We've talked about some of them tonight. They aren't just capital projects, the town itself, I just think that a plank in this that would enable the town to vote a 2nd cent on a local option tax. Where else we can't increase property taxes more, and the local option money has been reliable and hasn't sent business away that I know of. And there can be exemptions in there for particular things that.
Agricultural machines.
Yeah, farmers who need farm tractors, I don't want to harm farmers, but,
Sundries.
Whatever, the legislature can work this out, but the town's cost of building cost of construction is affecting all communities. And we need another source, and this one has proved to be reliable for us. And I just think, I haven't done anything else I can suggest.
Is there a precedent to add 1 more cent in the state of Vermont?
There,
None.
I did not hear this. There's, because they collect from a lot of different communities, right? I don't know how many communities currently have a local option tax.
At least
Well,
20 from what I know.
So 10%, right? That means that 9 out of 10 of the communities represented do not. And they're glad to have it available, but they're not even thinking about a second cent.
Yeah, nobody has done it, that's my point, right?
It's not available.
No, the legislature only allows up to 1 cent. And then the legislature takes a huge portion of that in tribute to Montpelier, you know, when we collect it. That's another thing that ought to be.
I'm not saying it's allowed or not, I'm saying nobody has done it, whether you're allowed or not.
As far as I know, there's no one who has more than 1 cent of
Yeah.
local options tax.
And,
But
how-
communities elsewhere in the US have revenue from lots of different sources than just the property.
Right.
Sure.
And
We
Vermont
also have
communities
dog
need help.
license fees.
I just, if you have an opportunity, are you gonna be the town's representative then?
I am attending town fair. I am hoping that y'all will nominate me to be the voting delegate.
Need a motion? Need a motion?
Probably.
Well, I would move, unless Kathleen has been our nominee in the past.
I'm gonna be done at the end of the
We're
month.
gonna be, I would move that we nominate or appoint Andy Cooper as our representative at the town fair. Is that the right motion?
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
It says yes, okay.
Second.
Oh, Paul, shucks.
You're welcome, Andy.
You guys are so good to me. Moved and seconded. Any other discussion on the town fair delegate from the town of Middlebury? Dan, I know you disapprove, but so it goes. All those in favor, please indicate.
Oh.
Aye.
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 Oh, there it is. Heather?
I said it first.
Oh, man. It was before I turned to
Did
look.
you hear
I
me?
didn't say it
Yes,
yet.
I heard
I
you.
didn't say it yet. Hi.
You're killing me.
I'm gonna just keep jumping up and
Okay,
down.
past 6:00. Brian has left us for his birthday dinner. I assume he may
He is coming back for executive session.
join for executive session. Very good. We are approaching executive session. As far as I can tell, are there other comments on the VLCT fair policy? Hearing none. Let's move on to the check warrants. Dun, dun, dun.
So I did the check warrant today, and I'll move to approve total expenditure in the amount of $929,141.38, consisting of $785,422.81 for accounts payable and $143,718.15 for the payroll for the period of August 28th to September 10th, 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Fair bills,
Aye.
I heard you, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, and Dan also gave me a strong thumbs up, very nice. Dan, do you have any select board member concerns?
You're on mute.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I did. I did it. No, I don't have any concerns.
Perfect. Heather?
I would just say that I was happy that we approved the drone purchase. It was very unfortunate accident.
The plane crash.
But I was really excited to see that Middlebury Police Department was able to assist with the equipment that we had approved. And I think that provided something that other communities don't have. And I was just wanted to say, I think it, unfortunate but glad that we could be a part of that recovery.
Absolutely. Why not?
I'm good, thank you.
Next month, we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion meeting, and Farhad, myself, David, and Chief Covey have kind of been the only people who have been showing up. So I'm looking for some time next select board meeting to kind of seek some direction on where we should take the diversity, equity, and inclusion group. We have this work plan that the staff can work on, but I think, you know, a really large level, where do we want this group to go?
Yeah.
Conversation would be really good to have ahead of that October meeting.
That sounds
Just
fantastic.
slowly started thinning out the group.
Yeah, like we have no members other than
Yeah.
town.
Right, all staff and
Yeah.
Selectboard.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Fred?
I've talked way more than I should.
Aw.
And I plan to, I have more.
I also find myself unconcerned. It's lovely to have transitioned fully to the fall, to have all the college students back, to have a little bit of the rhythm of the school year going on, to have it be pitch dark out at 8:30. We are in the between times.
I'm gonna miss summer.
I know.
It's still really nice.
It's
What a
coming back
gorgeous
for,
day.
it's coming back for the weekend,
Yeah,
so
we got some
make sure
80s.
you enjoy it.
It's gonna be lovely.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to close the public meeting and enter executive session. Who'd like to bring us in?
Oh, I closed my thing.
Oops.
I can move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding the negotiations of a contract would clearly place the town at a substantial disadvantage because the discussion will divulge the town's position on the contract provisions to be negotiated. I move to enter into executive session with the inclusion of the town manager and assistant town manager to discuss the negotiations of a contract as allowed under Title I, Section 313A1A.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Yeah, thanks, Heather.
I also move to enter into executive session with the inclusion of town manager and assistant town manager related to the appointment, employment, evaluation of a public officer or employee as allowed under Title I, Section 313A3.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, very good. Thanks. We are not in public session.